Welcome to Storytellers, the podcast where we hear the tales and journeys of inspiring members and supporters of NSA Houston. I'm your host, Beth Nas, and here everyone has a unique story. So let's get nice and cozy as we spotlight our next storyteller. Today, we're joined by Eric Aroca. He's not only this year's president for the National Speakers Association Houston chapter, but he is a renowned fashion influencer and stylist, focusing on the art of dressing for the stage with elegance and distinction. Eric's expertise will delve into the impact of stage attire on speaker presence and audience perception, offering practical tips for selecting attire that showcases professionalism, elegance, while embracing personal style. Eric's insights promise to inspire both seasoned professionals and newcomers alike. Please help give a warm welcome to Eric Aroca. Eric, I'm so thrilled to have you today. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm doing great. Good to be with you again. This is great.
It's so much fun being able to just learn more about you because throughout this year, as president of the National Speakers Association and serving on the board with you, I've gotten the opportunity to definitely get to know you better. But I'd love for our audience to learn more about you. And so, fashion, tell me about that. How did you even get started? I know you're always a sharp dresser every time I've seen you, but where did it begin? Just start from the beginning.
Well, number one, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And when I was about 10 years old, I had been living in the States. So I migrated from Chile to the States in 77. I was 9 years old. About a year later, I was around 10 when I started paying attention at school to what kids were wearing. Back in the 80s, it was powder jackets. You're probably way too young to even know what a powder jacket is, but it's basically just a windbreaker. People wore them skiing all the time. So they were called powder jackets. And so I just started like paying attention to what other kids were wearing. And I started paying attention to what I liked and what I didn't like. And that just really became a thing with me over the years, throughout my teenage years. And so that's kind of where it started. And I was always just giving advice to family and friends on what to wear, what not to wear, when to wear it, all those types of things. And then it was late. I was in my early 40s, working in a sales position for a large pharmaceutical company. And I found myself in a lobby of a hospital, just waiting for my appointment. I was meeting with the COO, excuse me. And as I sat there early in the morning, a gentleman walked in. He was really young, probably mid 20s. He came in there with a really bad suit, really bad, ugly white shirt that was no longer white, bad shoes, sat down. And so I just started chatting up this young guy. And we exchanged names and who we worked for and little things like that. And I said, so I found out he was an investment banker. And I was probably too brutally honest. And Beth, and you know me, I kind of, have that problem. So I just said, man, you are so sharp. Like the guy was driven, he was goal oriented. He shared with me like how he was going to climb that corporate ladder in the investment world. And I was really amazed. I was like, wow, this guy's got a good plan put together. But I said, man, you got a great plan, but no one's going to take you serious because you dress like a slob. And he was really taken aback by that, as he should have been. And I gave him my business card, and I just said, "Hey, man, if you ever want some tips on how to dress better, how to look the part of an investment banker, give me a call." That was the end of it. That was the end of it. I thought I'll never hear from this guy again. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call I don't recognize on my caller ID. I picked it up, just because it could have been a client or something like that. And so I pick up the phone, and it's this guy, and he's like, "Hey, do you remember me? You said I dress like a slob, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember." And I was starting to apologize. I was like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have been that forward with you and whatever." And he said, "No, man." He's like, "I told my wife my experience, and I told her, I said, he told me I dress like a slob, and she looked at me and said, he was right. You do." that's where it all started. After that, I had a side business called the Walking Fashion Show, and I started a business, just kind of a style image consulting business, where I would just give friendly advice to people who wanted it.
Definitely a catalyst that inspired someone to gain different perspective on their own personal attire, but also a catalyst for you to be able to start your new journey and something that it seems that you're super passionate about. I think when you are passionate about certain things, that energy comes off of you and people magnetize to that. And when you walk into a room, people magnetize because you have your tie with your fun socks that have a lot of personality. And I think dressing expresses who you are. And so, how do you think storytelling ties in with the way you dress?
That's a great question. I thought quite a bit about that, and for my own personal life, it's been kind of really interesting because, like you mentioned, I wear fun socks, and I think that's just a little piece of my personality, right? That part of fashion helps me to share with people a little bit about my personality. So when I tell stories, I tend to tell fun stories, right? Because I wear fun socks. And so I think it's one of those little things that you just have to find. You have to like be able to just identify, hey, I love to tell fun stories and I wear fun socks, and you kind of make that connection. Or it might be a fun tie or a fun pocket square, or it might be like unique shoes, or something, right? It's got to be that something that makes you not only unique in your style, but also unique in the way that you present and the way that you present yourself to other people. Because first impressions are so important in art, especially in our business. If you don't look the part, people are just not going to pay attention. You've lost your audience before you've even said a word. I mean, when they introduce you and you're walking out on stage, that's your moment right there. That's your moment. It's not when you start speaking, it's when you're walking up to the microphone or to take the microphone. And so I think you just have to identify it, and then just put those pieces together. You could be very what's the word? You could be very traditional in your style. You could be very traditional in the style in which you present. There again, you would have a really good match, right? You could be fun and quirky, so you might wear fun and quirky clothes or something. You might have fun and quirky hair or something like that. And so I think it's just a matter of identifying those two and just kind of marrying them, kind of bridge them together.
It definitely says a lot about a person. And I think when you are in a professional setting, these days, a lot of the approach with after COVID, especially with things going Zoom, then, it changed the dynamic of how people dressed. And so, how do you think that changed overall in the way people? I can tell you right now, no secret, I'm wearing a fancy top, but I'm wearing pajama bottoms as I'm doing this interview and house slippers. And so, for the most part, how do you think things like that change the fashion industry?
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to blame COVID, right? Or they want to blame or they want to blame technology for that, because technology allows us to do exactly that. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt and tie and some dress slacks. Those are
Exactly.
the shoes that I'm wearing. I'm wearing my white Crocs, right? Because those are my walking around the house shoes. So I think as people, we have this tendency. We want to be comfortable. We want to dress comfortable. I think that's where we are. But I would caution anyone to do it all the time. Most of the time, I'm dressed from head to toe. Like I have my nice dress shoes on, what have you, slacks or whatever. Because if we divide it up, then we tend to start to be more casual about our conversations, about our meetings, the way that we conduct ourselves in meetings, it becomes more casual, right? Because we want to match that comfort level. And so that would be my biggest caution to you is, hey, if you're going to be in an online meeting, just, go all the way. Just dress, if you're going to wear a nice top, if you're going to wear a nice skirt, or wear some slacks or some trousers or what have you. Finish out the look, just so that you don't fall into that, oh, I'm too casual, and then that casualness actually catches up to what comes out of our mouth and our communication. And I think we want to avoid that as much as possible. It just helps us be more professional and in tune to who we really are and what we're trying to accomplish in that setting.
So, what I want the audience to hear, and from what I'm hearing you say, Eric, is mindset. The way you dress creates this mindset of who you are and how you present yourself. And if you want to be casual, then your mindset and your demeanor is going to be casual and laid back. If you're going to be professional and you dress the part, then you eventually play the part. And I love the fact that you bring mindset into it because we don't really understand how much the psychology of what we wear impacts us and our perspective and perception of others. And especially in a role where you are on stage, you definitely want to be able to play that part. You're representing clients and you're an extension of people in some cases. I was telling one of the other podcast guests that I was interviewing, when I go to my office, I love to wear our office branded hoodies and t-shirts and hats. And, when I'm there, it creates an environment of camaraderie, of being part of a team when we're all uniformed and are there together. And so I think everywhere has its own appropriate setting
Yeah.
of how you dress the part and what the mindset is, but ultimately it does boil down to that. And so, given mindset and given that you are in a world that is so influenced by looks, how can you be able to keep that balance of, um, you know, knowing who you are and not getting fed into the society of, just the superficial aspects of it? Because ultimately, you know, I know these days things are expensive. The cost of being able to dress yourself is expensive. And I went into thrifting for a little while and I would pull gems together and put
Yeah.
together an ensemble. And so, what's some of your advice that you would give to our listeners that maybe want to play that part, but, is just something that isn't financially reasonable for them to do?
Yeah, great question. I think you start off with picking a style, right? Not trends. We're not talking about picking trends. We're talking about picking a style. If you're a conservative person, you might want to go with a more conservative look, right? If you're fun and quirky, then you want to go with more of a fun and quirky type of style or what have you. And I think today we are really fortunate because you really have so many choices, of places to go shop. So regardless of what your budget is for, your style, you can comfortably and very adequately build a style regardless of what your budget is. I've had clients that have a bigger budget. I have clients that have a very small budget. And so now we can really cater to them depending on their budget and what they can do. Like you, thrifting, I have been able to find some just completely magical pieces, that I wouldn't be able to maybe afford other places, right? Or even find in other places. I purchased a Perry Ellis sport coat. It had all the original sales tags still attached to the jacket. Okay. The sales price on the jacket read $250. It did not say compared to. It was the original. It was the original ticket, and it said $250. I looked at the price tag at a thrift store, $8,
So,
brand new, never ever been worn. Okay, I snap that thing up in a heartbeat. So regardless of what your budget is, I think it's really important that you pick a style, and then you have many options to go ahead and take care of that style, and then incorporate current trends into that style as you move on, right? But don't pick a trend and then incorporate styles to go into that trend. That's a disaster. So pick a good style that matches your personality, that may match what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to do, and then you can incorporate trends into that style that you have, and just work on the trends that make sense for your style.
And so for our audience members who aren't familiar with the terms, what's the difference between style and trend?
Style is forever, right? Trends come and go. Trends are like tips, right? Hey, here's 5 ways to look fantastic at your next meeting, or something like that. They Trends always change depending on season, on just what's going on, right? Whatever the fashion world has decided is going to be the next trend, that's what it is. Style is something that goes forever, right? Like, style never changes, trends change. But sometimes those trends will stick, and they will just attach themselves to a style. They become a style of their own. So now it's 2024. People are still wearing skinny ties, right? Because it's something that, it's a trend that came in but never went away.
I realize that fashion recycles, and they say every 20 years.
Yeah,
And so would you say that that's style or that's trend that recycles?
that's that's still a style. Styles recycle. Trends don't. Trends come in and out. And
Mhm.
like I said, trends could be a few months, it could be a season, it could be a couple of years, but they cycle out faster than style, right? People say all the time, will say to me, well, mini skirts or polka dots, right? Polka dots have been around since the 1920s. It never, like, that's a style. Like, if you wear polka dots, that is a style. Now uh, it could be more popular or more apparent in certain eras of history, but it's one of those things that's never gone away. It's a staple. Mini skirts were a staple. When they came out, they were a trend, right? People thought, oh, mini skirts, they will not last, right? Well, here we are, 2024. Mini skirts are more popular than ever.
So a lot of what I heard in your former statement was talking about being savvy with the way that you dress and using what you have to enhance or complement your attire, and that it is okay to shop high level clothing stores, ones that maybe even custom fit you to fit you, exactly as you need to, like custom tailor. But then again, there's also resources that you can find to be sustainable. It reminds me of running a business. As a business owner, we have to think smart. We have to think savvy on our feet. And I know you're not just an influencer and a fashion stylist, but you're also a business owner, and you've made this something that you are passionate about, which ultimately became a side job that you called it, but now also a career because you've dressed so many people, even in our industry, that they trust you with your sense of knowledge. And so, how do you think treating this like a business has helped you grow your clientele?
So it's just made me really aware of what's required to run a business. Whether it's marketing or selling, um, branding, all of those things have just come to the forefront more. Now with the advent of like social media, it's really made it apparent to, hey, what is it that my customers or my followers want to see, right? What is it that they want to, when they hear from me, what do they want to learn about? What do they want to see? And so it makes me more cognizant of that message, to make sure that I'm putting out the right content, make sure that I'm putting out the right information that's going to be helpful for them as they move through in their life and the things that they're trying to do and accomplish in their careers or in their personal life. And I want them to do it in style. I want them to do it with elegance and distinction. That's really become like the motto of my business is dress with elegance and distinction. You want to be elegant. By elegance does not mean you have to wear a nightgown, a cocktail dress, or a tuxedo. You could be elegant wearing a sports suit, right? You could be elegant by wearing jeans and a t-shirt. It just has to be the right t-shirt and the right pair of jeans, the right shoes, to match your audience and what you're trying to accomplish, to match your message. Then people will take notice. I often tell people if you want to put it to the test about whether or not fashion matters, because a lot of clients will say, well, no one should judge me on how I dress because they don't know who I am as a person. But you're telling them who you are, in to some degree, right, by the way that you dress, and that goes to speak to who you are. That goes to show you that people do take notice. You don't have to be a presenter. You don't have to be a keynote speaker in order for people to take notice of how you dress and what you look like, and the energy that you give out by dressing a certain way. So I would say dress with elegance and distinction. Look your best in whatever that is. Everything is out there for you to take advantage of, and now you just got to reach out and grab it and kind of go with it.
And from my perspective, style not only identifies who you are, but it also identifies your brand and the way you market yourself. And so, talking about entrepreneurship and running a business and not just treating this as a fun experiment, but more or less an actual career. I don't think just necessarily applies to the fashion consultants or it can be across the board for any type of consultant. It can be any speaker or author or trainer. Anyone who has a passion, who has a love for doing something, when doing it, if you take it seriously, if you take your personality, if you take your brand identity, your core values is what I'm hearing, and really
Yeah.
put that out into your style and how you market yourself, how you tell your story, because I'm sure you are not just telling people how to dress every day, but you're also expressing your story through that and why you do what you do. And then you hear other people's stories. And so storytelling is all encompassing, which ultimately boils down to a style that you have and telling that story, expressing yourself. So I really like that a lot. And so growing up, who were some of your role models and inspirations that were in the fashion world or even consulting world that you found?
When I was a kid, and I'm when I say kid, I'm going back to that 10-year-old boy, right? I was a boy. Um, I would say my my role model, the person that I always just like looked up to and thought, dang, like wow, was my grandpa Rene. My grandpa Rene was always dressed to the nines. I don't have a single picture of him where he's not dressed to the nines, and he was a salesman, right? So again, it's like that old school, that really old school mentality, and I just loved it. I was just like, man, my grandpa dresses so nice, and so growing up, that's what it was. When I got a little bit older, and because when I was growing up, we didn't have what we have today. We didn't have social media, so you there weren't a bunch of influencers that you could just follow and whatever. You really had to pay attention. So I paid attention to movie stars, Marilyn Monroe. I was always like, wow, like her fashion sense was amazing. James Dean, James Dean wasn't with us very long. He only made 3 movies before his tragic accident. Um, so just the way that he dressed, and he had the signature leather jacket, white or black T-shirt and jeans. Again, elegance and style. I mean, that is iconic to this day. So I think you're right. We tell stories. We tell stories when we communicate, and we tell stories when we dress. So if you're gonna tell a story by the way that you dress, make it a good one.
Absolutely. And so what would be some of the experiences that you've gone through where you've gained some sort of advice or insight that you think our audience should take away? Any aspiring coaches or consultants or speakers who are just getting into this business and just starting out, what would be the best advice that you could give them?
I think the best advice I would give them right now would be to dress for your audience. It's really not about as much about wearing what you want to wear. It's really about taking a look at your audience. Like, I always think about us as presenters, as keynote speakers, as corporate coaches, as life coaches or trainers, whatever, is that we we spend so much time on our messaging. We want our messaging to be like spot on. We want our social media to be spot on to our brand and all these things, because we're trying to grow our network and our social media following and all those things. And all that is super important. And by the way, I think you've done a magnificent job of your brand on social media. I follow it and absolutely love it. Love your messages.
Thank you.
But one thing that I've noticed is you're always on point with the way that you're dressed. The way that you dress matches the audience or the people that you're targeting to come and follow you, to take a look at your social media pages, to follow you on social media, to connect with you on social media. And so the way that we dress should match our audience. It should match our message, and it should match our audience. When we sit down and do a 30-minute consultation, I really want to know, why are you trying to make a change? And what is it that you want to change? Because sometimes they say, hey, I want to change my hair. I want to change my makeup. I want to change the way that I dress. And I'm thinking, well, once I have all the other information, I'm thinking, why do you want to do that? Let's not change it completely. Let's just update it. Most people really just need an update, right? A 2024 update. And if you have that, you're ready to go. You're ready to go out and conquer the world. Um, it's really not that hard. People get overwhelmed with it, but it's really not that hard. And if it's not something that you want to pay any attention to or give a lot of energy to, just go hire a style consultant and have them help you navigate those waters, because they'll make it way easier for you.
I love the fact that your message is so simple and it's just being you. It's being your authentic self. And by you being your authentic self, you gain the confidence. And by you having the confidence, it builds those relationships for people to want to engage and trust and have that dynamic with you. Just being who you are. Don't try to change it and be someone different, because at the end of the day, you may just need an update and you're perfectly fine. And so, really
Yeah.
understanding what your style is, what the direction of your style is, and really embracing it sounds like ultimately it boils down to being true to who you are as a person.
Yeah, it comes down to those things, those core things inside of you. That's where it starts. And I think in the end, that's really where it ends. It's super important. I just feel like people need to um, be able to have that freedom to express themselves. We all make judgments. We just do. It's human nature. And so, whether it's a positive judgment or a negative judgment, we make them, and we make them oftentimes on the way that people dress and the way that they present themselves. So, like I said before, if you're going to tell a story by the way that you dress, make it a good one.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for this amazing insight, Eric. We're looking so forward to having you present in our May professional workshop for the National Speakers Association Houston's chapter. And so tell our audience a little on what they should expect for the upcoming program.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun. I'm gonna be talking specifically about three things that are really important that will make or break whatever you're trying to do with your style. Number one is fit. Do your clothes fit you properly? Number two is pattern and colors. Choosing the right patterns and colors for your frame is essential to being successful, because I really believe that success is in the details. And then the third thing, we're going to talk a lot about trends versus style.
As far as the program is concerned, it's going to be May 17th for our audience members to be expecting it. Put it on your calendars. And Eric, where can our audience find you? Where are the different platforms that they can find Eric?
Well, really simply, they can find me for the fashion side. They can find me at the Walking Fashion Show across any social media platform. If you want to know about my speaking side of the business, that's simple. It's Eric Aroca across all platforms. And my website is ericaroca.com. Keeping it really simple.
I love it. We'll definitely be glad to check you out and connect with you. And then also looking forward to seeing you on May 17th. Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing this experience with us, sharing your journey with us, sharing your insights with us. You are definitely a trailblazer in our industry since I've gotten on the board and have had the opportunity to serve with you, and I love how you lead by example. So thank you for the inspiration, and we look forward to being all inspired by you this coming May.
Thank you. I look forward to it. And it has been my pleasure. My pleasure. I
All right.
can't wait.
Wonderful. And that's a wrap for another episode of Storytellers podcast. Until next time.